We're joined now by one of Britain's leading economists whose new book, Obliquity, looks at why some decisions work and others fail. Now, John Kay, your point, and the answer is anything but the obvious here. So what is obliquity in the context of your book?
Obliquity is the idea that complex goals like happiness or profit or wealth are typically best pursued indirectly. That is, you create great lives, you create businesses, great businesses, and that's what generates profit or happiness. It's not the pursuit of happiness or the pursuit of profit that does it. And typically, if you do pursue these things directly, you will risk damaging the process that actually generates happiness, profit, etc. in the first place.
Let's look at then business. So a company which concentrates and very much is fixated on creating shareholder value is one which may well become a cropper, whereas one which constantly keeps its eye on its core principles will succeed.
In a way, Bayer and Lehman were the most profit-oriented companies there have ever been. And you see what happened to them. The other side of it is to think about pharma, for example. It's an industry that is illustrated
on the development of drugs.
Concentrate on the development of drugs and the great business. George Merck, who ran the Merck company for 20 years, put it better than anyone, who said, we never forget that medicine is for the people, it's not for the profits, and the better we remember that, the more profits we make. And that was absolutely true of what happened to Merck. And Merck is interesting because Merck then moved away from this. In the 90s, they said, we're totally focused on growth and profits. And you see what happened to them afterwards. Actually, a successful company, certainly in market cap terms, in the pharma industry today is Johnson & Johnson, who have this rather wordy credo that is just a rather longer-winded version of what George Merck said about that business.
Well, let's look at other industry groups as well. I mean, let's take a look at aviation then. I mean, we see the strike going on with British Airways. Is that Chief Executive Willie Walsh, who is not looking at the business itself, but is he too involved with the cost structure?
There's a large element of that, and that's often what goes wrong with companies, that as it were, they cut back on costs or they push up prices, reduce service to customers, and in the long run, you know, they undermine what made the business strong in the first place. That's what Marks and Spencer did in the 90s, for example, when they shoved up price. They no longer quite offered the value they'd once did. They squeezed their suppliers, and it was great for profits for a bit, but ultimately we all know their shares and profits fell off a cliff.
Of course, ICI had to sell itself off.
Right. ICI went through the same transition. ICI, for 70 years, said what we're about is the responsible application of chemistry, and they shifted from that, from explosive to dyestuffs to fertilizers to pharma. In the end, in the 90s, after Hansen chased them, they said we're now totally focused on shareholder value, and they destroyed not just shareholder value but the company.